This is the Paltalk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our great friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show. I want to remind you guys once again to go to the Paltalk News Network site. The News Watch never stops, you know. www.paltalknewsnetwork.com. If you went there today, you would have read a number of things. In fact, there's an interesting story we may get to later in the show about teenagers resisting conscription in the Israeli Defense Forces, in the Israeli Army, because they don't want to be used to move to enforce a moratorium on building settlements in the West Bank. And there's a great piece in there on the 10 worst ethics scandal in the public eye in government. 10 worst ethics scandals of 2009. There was a lot to pick from, actually. Before we get to our main story, though, I want to remind you that on the 7th of January in the new year, we will be resuming Make It Pro TV, MakeitPro TV. And if you go to Michelle Granger's pro page at makeitpro.com, Michelle Granger, of course, the outstanding softball pitcher with the lowest ERA in history of any pitcher, professional or amateur, on record, I believe. You have an opportunity to register, put a question on her wall that we may read on the show, and you are qualified for a free Paltalk Premium upgrade or a limited edition Make It Pro TV shirt. So you want to be there or be square. I don't see Bill Silberg with us, but we're going to talk about the story of the day. Yes, it is New Year's Eve. That doesn't mean that the news stops. In a very rare session, the United States Senate met early this morning, by its standards, to vote on a health reform bill. It took less than 15 minutes to get the prerequisited 51 votes. I think it was 60 votes in total that they got. Every Democrat voted yes, 2 independents voted yes, and every single Republican voted no. Now, something's wrong with this story, ladies and gentlemen, right from the start, when you see a vote that's strictly along party lines. There must have been some Republicans who favored it, and there must have been some Democrats who opposed it. But I think Cassandra's comments of 2 days ago, that what this is really about and why they had to push it through before the end of the year is to give the president something he can crow about, that he accomplished something in his first year of office. And that's why the Democrats voted for it, to give him a boost, and why the Republicans voted against it. Now, I'm not saying that every Democrat that voted for that was the only consideration, nor am I suggesting that every Republican who voted against it, that was the only consideration. What I find really interesting about this is a claim that this legislation is actually going to reduce the federal deficit. And I don't know how you spend more money and reduce the deficit at the same time. Now, that being said, you all know that I believe that our current medical reimbursement system in the United States is unfair and inequitable, and it is basically based on your ability to get a job that provides medical benefits. The benefits are attached to the jobs. Well, that's all well and good if you have a job that gives medical benefits, but if you don't, it's not such a good thing. But as we saw yesterday with our guest, Dr. Michael Price, there are a lot of things about this bill that leave a lot to be desired. And I have suggested that maybe we need to take a deep breath and regroup and go back at it again, trying to get broad-based bipartisan support and make it not an issue of what's best for a president or a party, but what's best for the nation. But this country is split along partisan lines, and to speak to the broader issue, delayed. Bill Silberg is delayed. He just messaged me. To speak to the broader issue of how partisan our country has become, and my belief that this is a divide and conquer kind of thing. If we could fight each other based on our partisanship, then he apologizes. If we divide ourselves and fight each other based on our partisanship, then we're basically fiddling over that while Rome is burning, and we're not addressing the very important issues that affect us. There is common ground here, ladies and gentlemen, because there's such a thing as the common good, and it's lacking in Washington because of the partisanship that is reflected by the way government does business, in my opinion. If you disagree with that, I'd be happy to hear from you. Now, before we go to our first caller, just want to point out procedurally what's going to happen here. The Senate has passed a bill. Great. Now, in January, the House likely will pass a bill, also probably along partisan lines. There may be some deviation. There may be some Democrats who vote no, some of the blue dog Democrats, although many of them are jumping ship and becoming Republicans, so they may, by the time the vote comes, all be Republicans. I don't know. And then they will have to reconcile the two bills, and then probably in February sometime, a final measure will be passed by the House and the Senate that will become the law of the land. Now, even though it will become the law of the land, it will be years before it affects everybody. There'll be some aspects of it that will take immediate effect. There'll be some aspects of it that will take years to take effect. Some people might say that's a good thing. Some people may be frustrated by that, depending on one's individual perspective on the issue. So let's discuss the bill for starters today. Let's start with Jerry in Florida, who I know was just so happy to see that there was a health care bill passed today, and I say that facetiously. Jerry,